Hi everyone. I put up a post earlier today talking about prolactin and asking if anyone knew what it did to men, and especially men that watch a lot of porn and ejaculate a lot. So I'm here to answer those questions now. Prolactin is a hormone produced in the pituitary gland, right? And when porn addiction is exactly the same as a drug addiction. Okay, I'm just going to this a little bit first. So do you know what a porn addiction is? Because most people don't. Most people think that they do know, that they know a mate that's addicted to porn, but they don't consider themselves addicted to porn. But by definition, if you're watching it once a month or more, then you have a porn addiction, just textbook definition. Okay, so there is a scale of this, but if you're watching it once a month or more, you have a porn addiction. If you've been watching it for a very long time, you have a porn addiction. And if you don't masturbate without porn, then we classify it as a porn addiction as well. Okay, so a porn addiction is a neural addiction in the brain. It's not a sex addiction, right? You're not addicted to boobs and ass. So when you're watching porn and masturbating, there's an increase in chemicals and hormones that flood the brain. Now, the first time that this happened, everyone can go back and remember the first time that they saw a porn mag or a video, or for kids these days, it's on their iPhones. And so that it's just an explosion. It's a fireworks display in the brain, right? And so when that happens, you've got your serotonin, your dopamine, and your oxytocin, right? The serotonin is the happy hormone, right? The well-being hormone. The oxytocin is the bonding hormone. So when you bond, a mother produces a whole lot of oxytocin after she gives birth so that she can bond with the baby, right? So you receive oxytocin bursts in your body from, patting your dogs and making love to your partner and hugging your children. It's not just sexual. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone though. So when you're watching all of these acts of porn, your brain is producing all these bonding hormones. So you're actually bonding to the acts that you're watching. The subconscious mind comes into this as well and thinks that because you're having a chemical reaction to this stuff, then it's happening to you. And so if you think to all the things that you've watched on porn, then your brain thinks it's happened to you. And any man will know, or woman, that when you find something that's boring, or it's not turning you on, or it's not stimulating you, you try and find something else, right? And so that's the brain looking for more and more and more. Anyway, so then you've got the dopamine. That's the addictive hormone, and we call that the novelty drug. I like what I see and I want to see more of it. That's the dopamine. We're all addicted to our phones, and it's the little red numbers, and it's like someone sent me a message, and then I'm going to keep going back to see who needs me, what do they need from me, and it's an addiction, right? The little dopamine hits. But with porn, it's the biggest dopamine hit that you can have, because you're coupling it with self-pleasure at the same time, right? So it is the same as a drug addiction, right? You've got the hit, crash, hit, crash, hit, crash. Now the hit is leading up to the porn addiction, to the porn watching. There's the dopamine kicks in. You might find out your wife's not home or something, and you're leaving work now, and you've got some me time, right? So it kicks in then. It's not just while you're watching the porn. So you've got this hit of chemicals and hormones, and then the crash. The crash is when those hormones, what goes up must come down. And the crash is where the prolactin happens, okay? So just like anyone that's taken drugs, there's a come down, right? And the come down is nasty, and there's depression, and the depression is because the serotonin levels have dropped, right? So there's this up, down, up, down, up, down. And what happens is the brain has to accommodate for all those extra chemicals and hormones, because it can't survive in that current state. And so when it does that, it changes itself. It changes the neural pathways to accommodate for all these extra chemicals and hormones. Now, when it crashes though, the prolactin, as we said before, is a hormone that's produced in the pituitary gland, right? I've just got some notes here because I can't remember this stuff off the top of my head. And so when you get the crash, prolactin goes up in the body. Now, prolactin causes erectile dysfunction. That's the number one thing that it causes, right? And you know, I've had clients that have, you know, had growths or issues with their pituitary and producing way too much prolactin, and it gives them erectile dysfunction. Okay, so prolactin also represses dopamine, which is why you lose your sex drive and erection after you ejaculate. Okay, so all the guys know, and then the women, when guys, after they ejaculate, they want to roll over and go to sleep, right? And so that's why prolactin actually increases that. And so an increase in prolactin can mean poor moods, tiredness, and difficulty getting erections. Okay, so that's the number one thing. But high levels of prolactin means an interference with the function of the testicles and production of testosterone and sperm. You can find all this information in my book. That's where my notes are from. Low testosterone, of course, then causes decreased energy and sex drive, as well as issues with muscle mass, hair and skin, and blood count. Okay, so what goes up must come down. The other thing that happens, though, when a man ejaculates is he loses his sexual chi, his flow, his energy, right? So we have chi in our bodily fluids. It's in our tears, it's in our blood, it's in our semen, and it's in all of our saliva. If someone has a car accident and they need a blood transfusion, then, you know, they've lost their chi. So you lose your sex drive and your sexual energy every time you ejaculate. Okay, so that's why you're getting tired as well. The other thing that's happening there is the testicles just produced and lost a whole lot of sperm, millions of sperm, right? And so they need energy to reproduce more sperm, and for that to happen, it's kind of like the thymus that shuts down the body when you get a cold and you feel like you're being hit by a truck on that first day, and that's because the thymus is shutting down the body to fight bacteria. And so your body requires energy to do that, and that's why you feel like you're being hit by a truck. And it's the same with the testicles. They're like, right, let's go, right? We've got to produce all these extra sperm, and so it shuts the body down to a degree. You get really tired. The other thing that's happening when men ejaculate is you're losing all your minerals and nutrients. Zinc is the number one mineral for men. It helps men produce testosterone. So the whole lot of men are in the gym trying to, you know, take all these testosterone supplements and everything, and they're not taking zinc, and they're ejaculating all the time. Like it's just, it doesn't make any sense, right? You lose selenium, you lose zinc. There's other trace minerals and elements that you lose as well, but you lose half your daily zinc, guys. So you don't produce zinc in the body. You have to get it from external sources, either supplements or food. We're not getting it from food like we used to. Everything is zapped, frozen, microwaved, you know, boiled, killed, right? So you're not getting the zinc that you need out of your diet. So we always put guys on zinc. The other thing we get them to look at is balance oil. That's the other supplement that I sell, and that helps reset the dopamine receptors in the brain. Hopefully that's put in the comments if you're watching live or a replay, and hopefully some of this information is really new to you and that you're learning some stuff. I'm going to tell you something else while I'm here. I've got some notes here. This is what I take the men's groups through, the master classes that I do. So there's this depletion that happens when men watch porn and masturbate, right? And I've just gone through all of that. But what's also happening, and what I researched, was what if it's not just about depletion? What happens, and I just Googled this, and that's my research that started, what happens when a man produces too much serotonin? So we know the serotonin levels go up, and the testosterone and the dopamine and the oxytocin, they all go through the roof when men watch porn and masturbate. Very different to just masturbating alone, okay? And when they produce all these chemicals and hormones, then it's the depletion, the crash, that then increases the prolactin, which is no good and causes erectile dysfunction. But what happens if you produce too much serotonin, right? And I don't think many people have looked at this side of things either. So high serotonin levels decrease sexual motivation, inhibiting sexual behaviors, causing men to have trouble reaching orgasm and ejaculation. So we do know that porn and porn addiction and masturbating all the time decreases sensitivity, all right? So you lose sensitivity in your genitals, and I call that the greyhound race. So you're constantly chasing that white rabbit. The white rabbit isn't real. The dogs don't know that in the greyhound race, and your brain doesn't know that. It's just kind of trying to chase this next thing, this next thrill, the biggest stimulus, the next dopamine hit, right? And so a lot of men have trouble reaching orgasm, or they need porn to have an orgasm, okay? So that's serotonin. Too much serotonin causes decreases in sexual motivation, all right? And inhibiting sexual behaviors, causing men to have trouble reaching orgasm and ejaculation. Now, what happens when you produce too much oxytocin? This actually affects the prostate, right? And you'll start to see, I've linked prostate cancer to porn addiction. And, people can have a go at me all they like, but it's really, really obvious. Excessive levels of oxytocin in males has been linked to benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH, an enlargement of the prostate causing difficulty in urinating, as well as bladder and kidney problems. Okay, that's too much oxytocin. Too much dopamine is, when it's concentrated in the brain, is linked to poor impulse control, men being more competitive and aggressive than normal, and it's been linked to ADHD and other addictions. I have lots of guys that come in with ADHD, anxiety, mental health issues, depression, and all of their symptoms can be attributed to porn addiction. So unfortunately, psychologists aren't doing the research around this, and they just treat it like any other addiction. And it's one of those things that a lot of my clients haven't actually told their psychologists, and they're taking their money, they're doing the talk therapy, and I'm like, okay, so have you mentioned that you've got a porn addiction? And they're like, no. And I've had, referrals come in. I've had big long letters from psychologists saying this is the background of this person and all of the things that they're experiencing. And I'm like, they're all the symptoms of porn addiction. Porn affects the brain. It damages the brain, the frontal lobe, which causes problems with your mental health. That's where depression and anxiety comes from. You also, decision making, focus, concentration, all comes from there as well. Emotional expression comes from the frontal lobe. So all these men that can't empathize and sympathize, it's because of porn addiction. I've also linked it to suicide. That's a whole other conversation. Okay, so that's too much dopamine, right? Just put a comment in the box there if you're watching live or replaying. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat box, and I'll get back to them if I can. Okay, too much testosterone, right? If you're producing abnormally high levels of testosterone, which you do when you watch porn, especially over a long period of time, you can experience low sperm count. Shrinkage of the testicles is another thing, right? And erectile dysfunction. It also damages the heart muscle, increases risk of heart attack, as well as prostate enlargement and difficulty urinating. Okay, so too much oxytocin affects the prostate, too much testosterone affects the prostate. When you ejaculate, you lose selenium, which keeps the prostate healthy. You're starting to see the correlation between prostate cancer, and there's heaps of stats in my book that talks about when the internet was introduced, when the smartphone was introduced, and you'll see that the statistics of prostate cancer tripled each time that happened. All right, in men. It's pretty cool. It's not cool, but the stats it's really obvious, right? So that's it for me today. If you want me to just answer again, prolactin is a hormone produced in the pituitary gland, and when you have the crash, so you have this big chemical rush of all these chemicals and hormones, and when those crash after ejaculation, prolactin goes up and it causes erectile dysfunction. That's the biggest one, but it also affects the moods, functions of the testicles, production of testosterone and sperm, and then that causes a whole lot of problems with sex drive, muscle mass, hair loss, all of that. All right, so if you've got any questions, happy for you to PM me. Hopefully this was insightful today. We really need to talk about this all the time. I did have a break from the men's work back in September, and I'm no longer doing the massage treatments because it was too harsh on my body, because everyone was vaccinated and it was causing major problems with me. So dumped that like a hot potato, and now doing some Kundalini activation in kinesiology sessions, and I'm about to relaunch my new 30-day program. So that's, I'll not relaunch, well, rebrand an old program that is now fucking amazing. So you'll see that soon, and it's called 30-Day Program Master Reboot, and we've got a scarab beetle on it, and it's all about rebirth. So my battery is dying, so I need to say goodbye. Have a great day, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.